Randy, you're no stranger to loss. Your precious Nancy is with the Lord. You have gone through a grieving process and are in a grieving process, we could probably say would be
Right.
fair and accurate.
Yeah.
You can speak to this well. What would you say to a Christian who is mourning the loss of a loved one?
Well, I'd say, first of all, mourning is appropriate. Jesus wept at the death of Lazarus, but he was really weeping for Mary and Martha, I think. He knew he was going to raise Lazarus. He's going to bring him back. And yet he's weeping. I think part of what he's weeping about is just, the burden of death, the fact that the world he created was not supposed to include death, though it certainly is all within the scope of his providential plan. But just that death is not what he created people for. He created us for life. And so death as part of the curse is just something that, of course, we mourn a loss. We mourn separation. But I would also say, be sure that your grieving, which needs to happen and has happened with me, is still happening, though it's not as intense, the grief process, as it was. For a while, it was like I could hardly remember, what day it was, what week it was. A couple of times I literally looked at my watch to make sure I had the month right. And it was just crazy. It was just disorientation. But Nancy was so much a part of my life. My soulmate, knew her for 54 years since we were freshmen in high school, married for 47 years, my soulmate. So yes, grieving is good. The only way you could avoid grief is to avoid love. Of course, when we lose somebody we've loved, we're going to grieve. So I would say to people, go ahead and do that, but then do this. Grieve correctly. And let me preface this by saying there's many people who say, and I've seen it in both Christian and non-Christian books on death, there is no right or wrong way to grieve. I disagree with that. We know that there's a wrong way to grieve because in 1 Corinthians 4, we're told, we do not grieve as those who have no hope. So it would be wrong to grieve as if you have no hope if you are a believer, and in particular, if your loved one you're grieving is not a believer. Now, if they're not, I understand that has special things involved with that. But I just see so many people who are trapped in grief and can't get beyond their grief. And sometimes they forget the reality, the promise of the gospel, the hope of the gospel, and hope, not wishful thinking hope, but blood-bought hope, that Jesus has assured us of this, that we will together be forever with the Lord. Therefore, encourage one another with these words. And that's what God calls us to do.